set to open in London that May. So up the steps of a wooden platform went these learned scientists and leading literary lights, and into an iguanodon. It was 15 feet tall, 30 feet from snout to tail. Hawkins had left an opening in the top of the hollow beast, like taking the roof off a convertible, and in it they feasted on rabbit and ham and pigeon pie, and drank port and sherry, and nodded sagely as Hawkins walked them through how he had come to understand how these dinosaurs had once appeared. The teeth were iguana-like, he said, hence the name, and hence the scales all over its body. He didn't have a lot of bones to work with, but there were enough to get a sense of the size of the thing. And there was this one bone, a spike, a thorny kind of thing, for which he couldn't find a home. So he figured it had to be a horn, like on a rhinoceros. And he was totally wrong about a lot of this. The horn, the scales, the whole green lizard iguana thing. And his dinosaurs weren't upright enough. They didn't seem nimble. They were lumbering lizards. Though in his defense, it would be a century or so before people figured all that out. And some of this is down to the materials he used. It was hard to make steel and brick and concrete look sprightly. Never mind look like it could chase down a Jurassic Park tour van. Hawkins had merely extrapolated from what he knew. And he got a lot of things wrong. But the results were spectacular. From May to October of 1851, 6 million people went to the fair. A giant hall of iron and glass, in a sprawling park in the center of London, like a cathedral, or a crystal palace, as it came to be known. 6 million people saw marvels of the age, glimpsed the future in the new inventions on display, 3D pictures, voting machines, revolvers, the first public toilets. And 6 million people saw the past, and marveled as they walked among Hawkins' dinosaurs. 33 models, his massive iguanodons and megalosauruses, his winged pterodactyls, his dicynodons with their turtle shells. Turns out that they never really had shells, and looked more like hippopotamuses than like Hawkins' model. You can still see these models now, at the park across town where they and the Crystal Palace itself were moved after the Great Exhibition, before the palace burned down after years of neglect. And if you do, you with your 21st century eyes will see in an instant that they don't look a thing like the dinosaurs you grew up on, or the colorful and feathered ones you've been reading about for years yet still haven't quite been able to get your head around, or give your heart over to. But for the Victorian visitor, learning what had been under their feet the whole time, walking among dinosaurs, no matter how unlike dinosaurs they turned out to be, was unlike anything they had ever done. Hawkins may have gotten so much wrong, but he got that right, and he gave them that. And in turn, they gave him all the accolades a natural history illustrator and paleontological model maker could ever rightfully expect. He was a star, lecturing and writing, selling drawings and miniature models. And then he did what so many British celebrities have done since. He took his act to America, and found fawning fans, and packed lecture halls. It wasn't the Beatles at Shea Stadium, but it still must have been something, to come to this new country, and teach it about the ancient wonders that lay under it. Central Park opened to the public in winter of 1858. New York City was growing in people and prestige, and if it wanted to be an international capital, if it wanted to one day compete with the likes of Paris or London, then it needed to ape some of those cities' moves. So London had Hyde Park, and now New York had this one. In Hyde Park it had the Crystal Palace. It had dinosaurs prowling its grounds, thrilling and educating its parkgoers. So too would Central Park. And so Waterhouse Hawkins was asked to build new dinosaurs, build more dinosaurs, more spectacular. And he was asked to build his own Crystal Palace. He would call it the Paleozoic Museum, a cathedral to scientific inquiry of iron and glass that would permanently anchor the southwest corner of the park. He dove into the work, building his creatures, designing the halls and the backdrops, sketching the dioramas, imagining the light through the glass ceilings, how it would shift with the seasons and passing clouds, and bring the past to life. And then his work, and the story, ends abruptly. They were about to build the museum, They were literally digging the foundation there in Central Park. Everything was going great. The Park Commission loved the plans. The public was thrilled. But the people at Tammany Hall, the corrupt political racket that ran the city, just shut the whole thing down one day. We don't entirely know why. We can sort of piece it together with a few fragments of the story that people have been able to dig up. It may have been about money, that the people on the museum project weren't kicking back enough to Tammany Hall. It may have been that one of the crooks at the top of the chain just didn't like dinosaurs, that he thought they were an affront to biblical teachings. And the truth is in there somewhere. And there's this other piece. This one's extraordinary. That after Hawkins complained and called out the graft and corruption of Tammany Hall, people broke into his studio in the middle of the night and smashed all of his dinosaurs, every one of his creatures, and then buried them in Central Park. And there's this one other fragment of the story. It's barely a scene. It has Waterhouse Hawkins distraught, in the middle of the night, in the rain, digging with his hands in the dirt to find what is left of his dinosaurs. All we can do